Hey now, my friends. Welcome to the New World Rising News for November the 5th of 2015. I found an interesting article today in the Cornell Daily Sun by Shay Collins. It's called, "What Are We Fighting Renoir For?" And it's interesting because it's a commentary on art, on activism, on artivism, on protest. And for some reason I found the article really humorous, and I'm going to read it to you. For readers who have not yet received their daily reminder of the intense strangeness of our modern world, a gang of protesters recently traveled to 3 museums to protest Renoir's paintings. No, as Sebastian Smee notes in the Boston Globe, they are not decrying Renoir's anti-Semitism or any other related political issue. The protests, quote unquote, focus purely on Renoir's aesthetic, and the group's name says it all. Renoir Sucks at Painting, or RSAP. This just strikes me as hilarious. Like, this has to be some kind of performance art. They have signs where they're protesting that say "God hates Renoir." The name Renoir with "no" in the middle really large. It just seems funny. The article continues. However, I struggle to call Renoir Sucks at Painting an activist group. It is most simply the material of an activist group, the elements of protesting deployed simply for the sake of deploying them. RSAP's most impressive quality is the group's ability to access every enraging, sophomoric, God they're so smug archetype that you would expect from aesthetic-focused protesters. I don't know why this tickles me, it's just funny. Describing Renoir Sucks at Painting lends itself to what I'll call the fact that, quote-unquote, statements. There's the fact that the group refers to Renoir's work as treacle with such consistency. That word shows up in nearly every article about the protests. There's RSAP's primary online social media platform, Renoir Sucks at Painting on Instagram. Their feed primarily features smarmy hipsters flipping off Renoirs in museums. There's the fact that their protest signs are usually far too meme-based to be unironic, saying things like Renoir was an inside job, or outright stupid, like saying Ren barf instead of Renoir. There's RSAP organizer Max Geller's response to a counter-protester's criticism, as recorded by Brian Boucher for Art News. As soon as they try to engage with me, they've already lost. There's this Huffington Post headline alone. Leader of the Renoir Sucks movement challenges critic to a duel to the death. Despite RSAP's coverage in publications from The New Yorker to Hypoallergic, commentators have attempted to remain restrained in criticizing the movement. The presiding tone of responses can be summarized as, "We get what you're doing, everyone gets what you're doing, it's just not that cool." As Geller noted, if you damn the RSAP for being sophomoric, you have to admit that you're now wanting and wasting time criticizing them. If nothing else, the RSAP has allowed a number of commentators to flex their "I'm going to call you an idiot without acting like I care at all" muscles. I mean, what is this commentary? It's so funny. Here's Sebastian Smee concluding his piece for the Boston Globe. If you want to stage a protest about Renoir, you clearly have other motives, or no meaningful motives at all. Benjamin Ginocchio similarly wondered in ArtNet News. Even if an artwork itself is the direct subject of the protest, what is the expected outcome of the protest? Removal? Censorship? Even the New Yorker's art critic Peter Schjeldahl weighed in with the witheringly titled, Hating Renoir is just a phase. If you must hate yourself a little for loving Renoir, then do so, he concludes. You'll get over it, and when you think about it, who's keeping score? Sheldal is commenting directly on the act of loving or hating Renoir, but his comment applies easily to protesting over aesthetics as well. Even now I have a hard time chastising RSAP. To damn the RSAP for caring enough to protest Renoir, I have to admit that I am someone who cares enough about people holding self-serving, posturing protests against Renoir. But there's that backhanded rebuke showing up again. I also have to question how much of my dislike for the RSAP grows out of the sad realization that protesting Renoir as aesthetic terrorism is something that I would find hilarious if I had thought of it. RSAP has accessed the weird polarizing act of taking a recognizable framework and just beating the hell out of it. The @Renoir sucks at painting on Instagram's description still includes a link to a now defunct White House org petition. Quote, remove all of the literally awful Renoir paintings in the National Gallery in Washington, D.C. Of course, the petition calls not for the removal of Renoir's paintings, but for their quote-unquote dehanging. The petition condemns the detrimental effect that the treacly, there's that word again, puerile paintings have had on our nation. And I get that if my friends and I had written that petition, I would still be boasting to people about how hilarious my idea was, or how ridiculous and cool and uncaring of a person I am. The most optimistic commentators have mustered a weak defense that perhaps we can all appreciate that people are still discussing art in the public sphere, even if they're doing so in a very attention-seeking and simplistic manner. But in the end, RSAP is obviously not a protest about art, and it is certainly not a protest about Renoir, even if it's a protest at all. In the most generous treatment, the RSAP expertly exposes the potential for absurdity in the way some form opinions about art. At least that treatment would make sense if the art world insiders and people on the street alike did not so resoundingly respond. Like what you like and don't protest over aesthetics. So yeah, this article struck me as humorous. You know? Is this artivism? Is this activism? Is this performance art? I don't know. It's intriguing, and it just strikes me as absurdly humorous. So I hope you enjoyed that story.